going through, oh, wait a minute. Going through the Good Shepherd, and we looked at this thing from a few different angles. Firstly, we sat and looked at what this really is, what it means to be compared to sheep. We looked at a few different things there. We looked at the comparisons made in Psalms 95, 7 through 11, where he says that we are the people of his pasture. And he comes back and says, my people are my sheep. We looked at John 10, where he says that the thief comes but to steal, to kill, and to destroy. There's one way in, one way out. Remember the Shaddai, we looked at the Shin, rather, and that Shin being the Hebrew letter that is represented in picture form by teeth, right? And so that Shin always means in guarding, protecting, to attack, you know. And so you have there Shaddai. El Shaddai is God Almighty, all powerful, right? Shamar means to guard, as in, and you shall guard the Shabbat. You shall shamar the Shabbat. You know, Yahshuah told us to guard these words, right? That I speak to you. He told the disciples. Then we looked at within that, you know, coming in the sheepfold in different ways, and the goal being to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And that entire passage, he's comparing and using this comparison with sheep and shepherd, and how this is handled. And remember, we went kind of through really the goal. That stealing and killing and destroying is kind of an order. It's a certain order for a reason, that he's attempting to steal things so that he can kill them, and he steals and kills enough of them, then what happens? They are destroyed. So at the end of the day, he's looking to destroy this sheepfold. He's looking to destroy those who call upon the name of the Messiah. And the enemy has always had an ought with Yahweh, wanting to put his throne above Yahweh's, right? So he wants the worship that Yahweh receives. And so what he has decided to do was, and this is why we always say, Satan is not our enemy. He is the enemy of Yahweh. And he wants to come against him by coming to us. So what happens if somebody is real low down and dirty, and they want to get you? They come for your kids. And when they come for your children, that will get you. That will get your attention. So the enemy, Satan, wants to get Yahweh's attention, so he attacks his children. He attacks those who call upon his name, because he wants that glory to go to himself. And so in that understanding that he's trying to come in these different ways, and again, Yahshuah says that if you come in any other way, that you are a thief and a robber, right? And so, again, I'm trying to do a really quick recap, as I don't want to go through the entire teaching again. Let's go to the next one. So remember, we kind of compared the sheepfold. We compared the sheepfold. This is what a sheepfold looks like. You can see the door. There's that door right there. And under is the tents where the sheep can go and get out of the weather. They can come out and they can graze, so on and so forth. But we see the shepherd who resides at the door. Now that can be a shepherd or a gatekeeper or doorkeeper. This is the tabernacle that Yahweh created, had Moses to create while they were in the wilderness. The tabernacle that was mobile. He was able to break it down and put it back together, because as they moved through the wilderness, they had a particular way that they had to break it down and put it back together, right? And they also had a particular way that they would align around it. And what we pointed out, what was so important, is understanding the position of the shepherd. And then if you go over to the sheepfold, you see where that is, and now look at the tabernacle and the who is right there, and I'm gonna make that bigger. And I'm kind of taking my time a little bit more because I know we have a few people that have not seen this at all. But we see right there, Judah is one of the tribes right at the door. Also, you have Moses, Aaron, and Aaron's sons, which were the Levitical priest. The high priest was also there. Aaron was the high priest. And so in the same place, you have both Judah and the high priest. Now, who is Yahshuah? Who's he from? Judah. And what is he? He is our high priest. So this position is absolutely perfect for the way he describes it in 1 John, in John chapter 10. The way he describes it, because he describes it as him being the door. That's the door itself. Then he describes it himself as being the doorkeeper, the one who allows in and out. And then he describes himself as being the shepherd who goes to the doorkeeper to get in the door to allow the sheep to hear his voice. And then he says, a stranger they will not follow. And we also went through an example of how, and I pulled up a video where we listened and watched as a shepherd allowed other people to attempt to call his sheep. And those sheep were in the field grazing, and they ignored those people. But when the shepherd called, their heads began to pop up. Their heads began to pop up. And then he gave the command, and they began to gather. They didn't do anything when the other people were talking and trying to call them in. They didn't do anything. But we also talked about him being the lion, right? The lion of the tribe of Judah being at the door to shamar, to protect, to guard, right? And so that got us through first. And then we looked at understanding the sheep from a sheep's perspective. We learned a little bit more about how sheep work, that they need to be directed and guided, but they are much smarter than we think. You know, that we don't give them enough credit, and that we looked at there's a strand within the sheep called the leader sheep. And this leader sheep is hereditary. They will go ahead and they will take the other sheep to safety if that needs to happen, or to greener pasture if that needs to happen. And so you have a strain, a sheep that is of this strain have the ability or the instinct to run in front of the flock when it is driven home from the mountain pastures in autumn, from the sheep sheds to the winter pastures in the morning, and back home in the evening, through heavy snow drifts, over ice-covered ground, across rivers, because they will step forward, they will step out to lead the rest of these sheep, right? And we went through several scriptures, and again, I don't want to necessarily go back through the entire teaching, but it is on YouTube, so pull that up. The first part and the second part are both there. But as we get into this next part, we want to look at something a little differently this time. So we looked at it from just the sheepfold perspective, from being the shepherd, him being our good shepherd, from the shepherd being able to call and the sheep listening to the voice. We looked at it from the perspective of being the sheep. Now, I want to up the ante a little bit, and I want to look at it from being the sheep and having this special connection that allows you voice recognition. What is voice recognition? Well, in today's devices, Most of our phones, our tablets, our computers, a lot of our electronic devices now have voice recognition, where you can speak. You know, if I right now say, "Okay, Google," probably about 10 phones went beep, beep. Right? So, what's really happening? I mean, I'm about to say 4. Oh Lord, girl's 7 now. My 7-year-old daughter loves to get the phone or the tablet and say, "Okay, Google, show me a video of." So you can talk to Google and she can tell Google what she wants to see, or if she has a question about something, she's like, And she's this little girl, she thinks, like, if she can't make sense of something, like, she needs to figure it out. Somebody's got to explain this thing to her. And so she has a lot of questions. I mean, we was in the car coming here, and she was like, "It smells like chicken salad." Like, well, we don't have chicken salad. So, we don't have no chicken salad. It's orzo Greek salad back there. She was like, "Well, did you put some of the stuff in that you would normally put in the chicken salad?" And I'm like, "I guess so." Well, that would explain why it smells like chicken salad. You have a point. But the point is that any device will recognize my voice, her voice, your voice. It will recognize it because the technology is made to recognize it as long as you're speaking something close to English. And it really don't even have to be English. Whatever language you speak, it will recognize that language as long as that software is programmed to understand that particular language. It will recognize it. You don't have to have a certain voice. You don't have to, be a certain person. Nothing. So if I just grab somebody's phone and say, "Okay, Google," the goal is for this device to obey the commands of anyone who speaks into it with a decent understandability, right? I mean, you can't just be talking like this. You gotta at least talk where the thing can understand you, right? But if you can talk a little bit, then it can pretty much pick you up. She's been doing that since she was like 3, maybe. And the words get a little mushy when you're around 3. It's like, what? They start mushing together. You're like, well, I don't know what she said. That's what she used to call a video. Show me a video of, and it will pick it up. It will pick it up. Showed her videos. So, but the point is, it pretty much is going to pull up, it's going to obey the command, right? Whatever command is given to it. But there's a different kind of software out there as well. A voice recognition security software, right? So you walk up to this vault inside this big building where you've had to put your finger on something 5 times, retinal scan, and now it says, "Say hello." And you say, "Hello." And then the floor opens up, you fall through it. Alligators down there, so. But you have voice security where I'm not going to allow you access because you don't have the authority. So the question is this recognition does the exact opposite from the other. The other one is created to understand just about anything within reasonable range. This system uses voice recognition to do the exact opposite. It's there to deny access to anyone whose voice it doesn't recognize. Access denied. So the thing is this: which system are we operating under? Are we operating under a system where every voice we hear, we are an unstable and double-minded man who goes with every wind and doctrine, just blowing in the wind? Where any command that is made to us, we perk up and walk toward it. Y'all, we've been trained for that. That's what I need y'all to hear. This was drilled into us for centuries. For centuries, we have been trained to hear the voice of anything, anywhere, anybody, and go obey that command. And so there's some uprooting that we have to systematically done because it was systematically done to us. We were systematically programmed to follow anything. That's why every religion on this planet got some black folk in it. Everyone. Everyone. And when we get it, boy, we go. We go. We go. So let's go back and step back through John 10 a little bit as it pertains to this idea of voice recognition. So this is the system that works within us. Do we obey the command of any and everybody? Do we only obey the command of the one who has the authority? So John 10, 14 through 16. And it says, I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and here's what's important, mine know me. 15, even as the Father knows me, I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. Verse 16, and other sheep I have which are not of this fold. I have to bring them as well, and they shall hear my voice, and there, y'all say there. There. And there, where is there? I can tell you where it's not. It's not here. There and there shall be one flock, one shepherd. Understand something. From wherever we are, we're in the wrong sheep. I showed y'all what a sheepfold was, right? A sheepfold is a place, right? There could be multiple flocks in a single sheepfold. When the flocks go in there, you know, they probably social. You go, hey man, what y'all doing here? Where y'all come from? Y'all like to graze these mountains? You like that little short stubby grass? I like my grass a little dry, a little extra tart. You know, hey, they talk, they intermingling and stuff. But when the shepherd comes and calls for his sheepfold, does he have to go and figure out which one is which? Some of them might look alike, and this one is over there, and I didn't realize that one wasn't mine. Now I got some. No, he speaks. And from wherever they are, they come and gather. How important is it for us to have the voice recognition that from wherever we are, we can gather? Because right here, Yahshuah tells us that he has sheep that are not of this fold. Where was he at the time? He was in Jerusalem. Right. So he's saying, you know what? My people aren't just in Jerusalem. And that's why he said to his disciples, go. The church loves to talk about the Great Commission, right? Yeah. But what was it saying? He says, go and make disciples. Go find your brothers. Because there's something else he says. He says, do not go by the way of the Gentiles. But you are to go and to find the sheep of the lost sheep of the tribes of Israel. So he says, do not go get the Gentiles, because guess what? Those ain't my sheep. They're not mine. Leave that joker right over there. He ain't mine. I'm not taking him home. Go find my sheep. So then we jump around and say we are Gentiles saved by grace. No, we're not. We are Israel. Period. Because he goes to find Israel. And he says that he will make war with the Gentiles. He's gathering his people and he's making war with the nations. We don't want Yahweh to make war with us, do we? No. So that means that we have to be ready to hear from where we are, whatever sheepfold we have found ourselves in. When he comes, we have to be brave and bold enough to say, that is the voice of the Master. Let's keep going. Let's look at John 20, still 10. We're going to look at verses 25 through 27. Again, I'm not going through the whole thing because I did that already. And so, but this whole chapter up to, I'd say, at minimum from verse 1 to verse 30 will give you a good picture of the discussion that Yahshua is having here. But let's go to verse 25 through 27. And it says, Yahshua answered them, I have told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness concerning me. But you do not believe because you are not my sheep. As I said to you, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they do what?
Follow me.
They follow me. He says, I know them, and they follow me.
Right.
He goes and calls. How important is it for him to know you? Very important. How important is it for you to know him? I challenge you that it is more important for you to know his voice than for him to know you. Because when he knows you, he just knows that you're out there. But he's a gentleman. And he says, lo, I stand at the door and I knock. He's not kicking down the door. So if you decide to barricade yourself in this sheepfold and say, I ain't going nowhere, I'm a Christian, I'm not going that place on no Sabbath. We have to understand and hear the voice of the Father. And what his word says trumps every tradition, everything we've ever taught. Just because our grandmother did it, our great-grandmother did it, our pastor would not lie to us, our pastor would not tell us the wrong thing. Guess what? It's so many people that just don't know. Just don't know. We have been systematically designed and impacted and influenced to believe just about everything that's told to us. They beat it into us, y'all. Everybody saw Roots.
Yeah, they did.
They beat it into us, literally. Oh, you think your name is Kunta? I got a Kunta for you. Your name is Toby. This stuff is the physical stuff is only part of it.
Right.
The chains that was placed on our minds,
That was it. Yes.
they didn't have no problem releasing slaves. Come on, y'all. Whatever. Go ahead.
That's right.
We got y'all.
That's right.
We got y'all.
That's right.
And so that's what we have to figure out, how to undo some of this stuff. And we have to be brave enough to ignore some of these voices. We have to be brave enough to ignore some of these voices. So I challenge, knowing him is more impactful than him just knowing you. Because when you know him, then you do the latter part of that verse. And how does that verse end? It says, I know them and they follow me. I know them and they follow me. So let's look at a couple things. And I want to solicit your help. We're going to come up with some more examples. But we're going to look at a couple scenarios where we're going to focus in on this one particular one where someone thought they were obeying the voice of the Father. Because how many of you know that no God-fearing individual sets out and says, I'm going to be disobedient today.
That's right.
No God-fearing individual says, I'm not going to obey the commands of God. Nobody says that. They might say we're no longer under the commands, but that's the way to justify and be convinced that I am right. Whatever it is, the end solution is, I'm right. And so let's take Shaul as our example, the first king of Israel. And we're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 15. We're going to look at verses 1 through 3 to get some context. And then we're going to jump down to verse 13 and take that down to verse 30. And so as I begin, 1 Samuel chapter 15, verses 1 through 3. And Shemuel, which is Samuel, said to Shaul, which is King Saul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you sovereign or king over his people, over Israel. And now listen to the voice of the words of Yahweh. Thus said Yahweh of hosts, I shall punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he set himself against him on the way when he came up from Mitzrayim. Now go, and you shall smite Amalek and put under the ban all, A-L-L, all that he has, and you shall not spare them, and put to death from man to woman, from infant to nursing child, from ox to sheep, from camel to donkey, everything. All. He had a reason for that. And as we fast forward, we can kind of start seeing why. Because when Israel was having real problems, descendants of Amalek, the Amalekites, who was supposed to be destroyed. But let's jump down. Verse 13. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 13, and it reads, And Shemuel came to Shaul, and Shaul said to him, Blessed are you, O Yahweh, I have performed the word of Yahweh. How many times have we heard it? I'm doing exactly what God said do. Verse 14, But Shemuel said, Wait. What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears, and the lowing of the cattle which I hear? And Shaul said, Well, that ain't why I didn't kill them. It's a good reason. It's a good thing. Here it goes. They have brought them from Amalek, because the people spared the best of the sheep and the cattle to slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim. Who's Elohim? Y'all pick that up? Yahweh your Elohim. And the rest we have put under the ban. So, in other words, I did everything. I did exactly what Yahweh said do. Verse 16. And Shemuel said to Shaul, Wait, and let me declare to you what Yahweh said to me last night. And he said to him, Speak. And Shemuel said, Though you were little in your own eyes, were you not head of the tribes of Israel? And did not Yahweh anoint you sovereign over Israel? And Yahweh sent you on the way and said, Go, and you shall put under the ban the sinners and the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. And why did you not obey the voice of Yahweh, but swooped down on the spoil and did evil in the eyes of Yahweh? And Shaul said to Shemuel, again, twice now, I did obey the voice of Yahweh, and I went on the way on which Yahweh sent me, and brought back Agag, sovereign of Amalek, and I put Amalek under the ban. But the people took of the spoil of the sheep and cattle, the best of that which should have been put under the ban, to slaughter to Yahweh your Elohim, again, your Elohim, in Gilgal. Then Shemuel said, Does Yahweh delight in burnt offerings and slaughterings as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Look, to obey is better than an offering. To heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as wickedness and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he also does reject you as sovereign. And Shaul said to Shemuel, I have sinned. Now he recognizes, I have sinned. But again, did Shaul wake up and say, I'm going to be disobedient today and I'm not going to kill all the Amalekites? No. What did he say? I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to do exactly what Yahweh says. And y'all save the best stuff so we can make a sacrifice to him. What did he do? He made his own path. He made his own way. This is, y'all, listen. I read these statistics. We have anywhere from 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 50 to 70,000 thoughts. 40, 50 thoughts every single minute. Y'all really think that we can trust our own judgment? When we say, well, I know the Bible says this, but when we stand up and can show and read in plain whatever language you speak, in this case, plain English says, you shall guard the Shabbat. But Paul picked up the tithe on Sunday, so now, and Jesus rose on Sunday, so now, and what have we done? We're keeping the sheep. We're keeping the cattle because we assume, well, that's not why I celebrate it. Well, why don't you celebrate this? Well, because I'm not Jewish. So we have a reason for not celebrating and a reason for celebrating, neither of which directly line up with what's written. But do we wake up saying we desire to be disobedient today? No. But it took the prophet Shemuel to say, listen, he said destroy all, no questions, all. I used the example last week of if I send my son upstairs and say, clean your room, he comes back downstairs and says, your room is all clean, Dad. And I say, wow, thanks, son. Now go clean your room. And he comes back down and says, Dad, the bathroom in the hallway is done, and I even cleaned Elise's room, I vacuumed the hall, everything. Oh, man, son, that's awesome. But go clean your room. And he comes back down and says, Dad, the guest bedroom is sparkling shining. Boy, you're on punishment. You can't go outside. Cut the video game off. Put the remote in my room until your room is clean. Then you can have it back. Why? He did all of that stuff. But what didn't he do? What I told him to do. This really is not rockets. It's not rocket science. But we have been lied to for so long that we are proving the definition of being blind. And again, I say the definition of really being blind is not being able to see something that is right in your face. That's the real definition. I can't see when something is directly in my face. So let's continue reading. Let's go to verse 24. Now that Shaul is beginning to see his sin, he said, and Shaul said to Shemuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the command of Yahweh and your words, because I feared the people and listened to their voice. And now, please pardon my sin and return with me, and let me bow myself to Yahweh. But Shemuel said to Shaul, I do not return with you, for you have rejected the word of Yahweh, and Yahweh does reject you from being sovereign over Israel. And as Shemuel turned around to go away, Shaul seized the edge of his robe and tore it. And Shaul said to him, Yahweh has torn the reign of Israel from you today, and has given it to a neighbor of yours better than you. Moreover, the eminence of Israel does not lie nor relent, for he is not a man that he should relent. Then he said, I have sinned, but esteem me now, please, before the elders of my people and before Israel, and return with me, and I shall bow myself to Yahweh, your Elohim. He's still doing that. So, right here, Shaul thought for sure he was listening to the voice of Yahweh. How much can we trust our own thoughts? And we got to stop blaming everything, and I use that word very intentionally, blaming everything on the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit don't give you 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. I'm sorry. We got to be able to weed out the traffic, weed out the commotion, weed out the confusion, and really listen for his voice and not be activated at every okay Google. Because everything that we see or think is not good for us, just because it agrees with our spirit. No. I'm sure when Hasatan said to Hava, Eve, you shall not surely die, but you will be like him, knowing good and evil. That resonated with her, and she was like, you know what? That makes sense. I think I'll eat. And Adam, come on. It's not about your intention. People get that confused. It's not about your heart in so many cases. It's about the controls that's been placed on your mind. And these 50 to 70,000 thoughts that we have to shuffle through to find the voice of Yahweh. So real voice recognition. How do we recognize the voice of Yahweh is the real question. That's the real question. Let's take a look at something here. And I use this example because this is a case that really just kind of blew my mind when I really began to think about what was happening here. But this is John, as he's being taken through this vision / experience, which we now know as the book of Revelation. And in this journey that he's taken through, he is being escorted by many different characters. From Hasatan himself to Yahshuah. So he is entertaining all cast of characters, right? He's seeing things, he's experiencing things, he's talking to people. Revelation 19, verse 6 through 10. Revelation chapter 19, verse 6 through 10. Recognition, voice recognition. And it reads, and I heard as the voice of a great crowd, as the sound of many waters, and as the sound of mighty thunders, saying, Hallelujah, for Yahweh El Shaddai reigns. Let us be glad and rejoice and give him praise. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his wife prepared herself. And to her it was given to be dressed in fine linen, clean and bright, clean and bright, for the fine linen is the righteousnesses of the set apart ones. And he said to me, Right, blessed are those who have been called to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, these are the true words of Elohim. And, this is John, this is Yohanan, and I fell at his feet to worship him. But he said, see, do not do it. I am your fellow servant and of your brothers who possess the witness of Yahshuah. Worship Elohim. For the witness of Yahshuah is the spirit of prophecy. Why did John bow to worship a messenger? Why did John bow to worship a messenger? Very simple. He thought he was the Messiah. He just went through this whole scenario where he's talking about the wedding feast. And he's seeing the bride adorned and saying, he's telling him to write the announcement. And he's like, oh my, I must be in the presence of the Lamb. And so it says, I fell. And he didn't just fall to his feet and say, oh, thank you for. No, he says, I fell at his feet to worship him. Right. He thought he was worshiping the Messiah. Mm-hmm. So if John, who is literally going through heaven right now, has to press in, according to the messenger, he says, listen for the words of prophecy. Mm-hmm. The spirit of prophecy. The witness of Yahshuah is in that. And to understand what prophecy is, it is the words of Yahweh, period. Right. It's not me predicting your future. That's right. It's not me naming it and claiming it. Come on. Prophecy is simply speaking the words of Elohim. They may apply to your past, your present, or your future. But no less, when I speak of Moshe coming out with the children of Israel from Egypt, that's no less prophecy than when I speak of Yahweh gathering his people from all the nations and all the sheepfolds where they have found themselves. They're both prophecy. So what he's saying is listen and understand the words of Yahweh. And he says, I'm just a messenger. So if it's that voice recognition we need some practice, right? If John got it twisted, John messed it up, then we don't think we need practice, and we think every thought that comes in our heart, the Lord told me to tell you. There are certain things that I have issues when people say that the Lord told them. And the biggest time when that arises is when they say the Lord told them to do something that is directly against Torah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that is Yahweh contradicting himself. Right. And you don't think that's one of those 50 to 70,000 thoughts? Maybe, possibly that's coming from you? That's right. So I want y'all to help me think of some things. We talked about Shaul. What are some cases, and we talked about John. What are some cases, what are some times where we can identify where Yahweh either spoke to someone and they did not obey his voice unintentionally, just like Shaul was completely in his mind unintentional, right? In his mind, he did everything Yahweh said. What are some other times that that's happened? Moshe, the rock. Balak and Balaam. He tells him, hey, don't even go. How many times does he come back to him? But they said that, basically the dude wanted to get paid. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. The dude wanted to get paid. It's like they came with the money in their hand. Can I at least go with them? Only the words I speak. He did. He did. Blessed them, spoke over them, went to a mountain, spoke blessings over them, and then pulled them to the side. Just get your women to walk in front of their men, and they toast. Speak to the rock, Moshe. Clap, clap, clap. What are some other, can you think of any other examples?
Mount Sinai. They all heard his voice.
Mount Sinai. And then he still, even after that, he put them on two mountains, right? And they walked through the valley. Mount Ebal, Mount Gerizim. Gerizim, they're pronouncing blessings. Ebal, they're pronouncing curses. Why do they have to pronounce curses? Because he says, if you don't do these things, then all of these things will overtake you. That's Deuteronomy 28. That's what's happening. There's both sides, two mountains. That's the only way you get a valley. So as you can see, there are so many times where the goal wasn't to be disobedient. The goal wasn't to recognize, to not recognize his voice. But this is something we have to do very intentionally. What Shaul should have did was thought through this and said, you know what, I want to make a sacrifice to Yahweh. And so why not keep the best of everything? But he did say kill everything. How about I kill everything and then make a sacrifice out of what I own? That's still being obedient and making the sacrifice. But what does he say? If you have to choose, what does Shemuel say? Obedience is better than sacrifice. So, son, if you're going to clean up the entire house, that's a serious sacrifice. Like, that was serious. You went through some stuff, but you didn't do the one thing I told you to do, which was clean your room. I would have rather you be obedient and clean one room rather than to tell me later on. And I'm flipping back and forth right now. But this is why I do it. If we have to put tags like that on things, we need to address them within ourselves. But this is why I do it. But this makes it okay. But we really don't have to. We say things like that, more than likely, we're justifying. And we're not recognizing the right voice. And when we start getting all these voices going, it gets muddy. It gets muddy. Let's take a look now. John chapter 10 again. Just that one verse. Verse 5. And it says, John chapter 10 verse 5, and they shall by no means follow a stranger, but shall flee from him, because they do not know the voice of strangers. This is the voice recognition system that seeks to recognize every voice that it possibly can, versus that voice recognition security system that seeks to weed out every single voice except for the one that has the authority.
That's right.
Is that the approach that we're taking to the Father? It should be. Because the way we recognize Yahweh, the way we recognize the voice of Yahshuah is by what? His word. His word. His word. John 1, chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. I missed the whole chapter thing there, but chapter 1, verse 1 through 5. And it reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim.
Absolutely.
All came to be through him, and without him, not even one came to be that came to be. Verse 4. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Verse 14. And the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us. And we saw his esteem as of an only brought forth of a Father, complete in favor and truth. How do we recognize the voice of the Father? By his word. By his word. Because if we will guard his word, then his word will guard us. He will stand at the door. He will be our door. He will be our gatekeeper. And he will be our shepherd. Amen.